Hey there, Pastor Eric here from Connection Church in Columbia, Tennessee. The message that you're about to hear, we truly believe is going to be a blessing to you. So our request of you is if it does bless you, that you'll take and you'll share it with others. We want, like everything, for people to be connected with Jesus. Our desire is for you to be connected with Jesus. Our prayer is that you would be connected with Jesus. But if you share this message with others, they'll be connected with Jesus too. God bless you.
You know how I like to start with just an honest assessment. Anybody else out there just exhausted today? It's so funny because the last hour they were so tired they couldn't even lift their hands to answer the question. But that's 9 o'clock. It's early. You know, it's earlier. Y'all have a little more time to think about it. But it's exhausting, right? Life is exhausting. And I don't know about you, but this week for me was kind of a heavy week with my dad being in the hospital and Pastor Ellis still being at home. There's just a lot of people that we love so much that we've been praying for and desiring to see God touch them. And it's just been one of those kind of weeks. You ever been there? You raised your hands. It sounds like you already are there. You're in the midst of it. And you know how God works in my life, and I always share this with you. This week, this message was another one of those where literally I was having to see it play out and live out in my life. Can y'all see over there? Better? All right. Seeing it play out in my life and just going, okay, Lord, I'm listening. I told my wife 3 times this week, I don't want to. No, it wasn't that kind of I don't want to. See, it wasn't that I don't want to do the laundry or I don't want to, put my clothes away. It wasn't that I don't want to wash the dishes because she already knows I don't want to do that. It's the I don't know where there was a ministry opportunity and I looked at her and I said, but I don't want to. I told you we're going to be transparent. I'm going to be real with you. It just was that kind of week where I would get a ministry opportunity come and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I just don't want to do that. And then I would do it, but it's like I had to say it. The issue is I already knew I didn't want to. God already knew I want to, and it was like a confession. I just want somebody else to know I don't want to. Okay, so it was an adult temper tantrum. Anybody? Yes, I had at least 3 of those this week, and I stopped counting after 3, so I don't know how many actually occurred. But it was that kind of week. I think the Lord was just trying to teach me that I'm not always looking in the right place. Like we're talking about this message today of keeping your eyes forward, keeping your gaze, set your face forward. And what I was realizing is I wasn't looking in the right place. And it's one convicting, but it's great to know. It's good to know. It's a good assessment. And now what we do is, okay, how do we move forward doing the right thing? Right? Now, I will tell you, those opportunities that I didn't want to do, but I did them, God bless me. I look back on it and I thank God I did them. And it was a blessing to do them. But sometimes you got to... Remember that message I preached on bad attitudes? Your pastor had a bad attitude this week. And the Lord kept having to, hang on a second. He was calling me out. And I would get in the middle of that ministry and go, this is why I do what I do. Here's what I've come to learn. It's easier to get back on track when you have a real purpose and a mission. When you have a reason for existence. And we all have a mission. And that's what helps us to stay focused and get back on track. And sometimes the enemy likes to distract us from the mission. So we're looking at this passage in Proverbs. Solomon writes the words of David in Proverbs. This is actually, I've told y'all wrong a couple of times, but really this is Solomon saying, my dad told me this. So I want to correct that. In verse 20 it says, my son, be attentive to my words, incline your ear to my sayings. Now there's the ear. Let them not escape from your sight, so ears, sight. Keep them within your heart. Our challenge last week was, Lord, help us to have ears to hear, eyes to see, and hearts to understand. And it comes from that verse. Keep them within your heart, for they are life. Now, these are words of wisdom. For they are life to those who find them and healing to all their flesh. Guard your heart, or keep your heart with all vigilance. Y'all know what a vigilante is, right? Be like that when it comes to your heart. Like, guard your heart. For from it flow the springs of life. Put away from you crooked speech, and put devious talk far from you. It's not just what you say, it's what you're listening to. Put it away from you. And then we get to this verse, and this is going to be our key verse for today. It is, let your eyes look directly forward, eyes forward, and your gaze be straight before you. That verse is our verse for today. Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. And here's why. If the enemy can capture your gaze, he can capture your heart. If the enemy can capture your gaze, he can capture your heart. What do you think Jesus said? If you even look upon a woman with lust in your heart, you have committed. He was like, it starts with the eyes and then it grabs the heart, right? There's this thing that occurs. You looked and then it ended up in your heart. And it goes on to say, I wanted to go on to say, you know, we talk about him capturing our gaze and capturing our heart, but it goes back to what we said 2 weeks ago. If he can capture your heart, he can bend your moral compass. But it started here, ended up here, and then you find that your morals have been deviated, manipulated, perverted. Y'all, we live in a culture that has very little to no moral compass. Right? That's why it's so important that we're in the Word to know what God would have us do, and we stay on task. Proverbs 17:24 says, the discerning, now here's that phrase, sets his face towards wisdom. Sets his face towards wisdom. Locks in that gaze towards wisdom. But the eyes of the fool are on the ends of the earth. Listen, we're a part of a kingdom that's not of this world. But we get so caught up in the things of this world. And he's saying, fix your eyes on wisdom, and wisdom only comes from above. Y'all know that, right? True wisdom only comes from the Father. And so we have to fix our eyes on Jesus so that we can have that relationship with the Father. You can't have a relationship with the Father without Jesus. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So we fix our eyes on Jesus because he's the author and the perfecter of our faith. I'll give you like an analogy about this whole thing about keeping your eyes forward. Y'all looking at me? A little play on words. When I went to basic training, one of the very first things they taught us was military bearing. Pat, you remember this? Military bearing. What we had to do is we had to keep our eyes forward. Any veterans in the house? Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, thank you. So you had to stand at attention, keep your eyes forward, and lock into. God bless you. I can't do it. I'm not in the military anymore. So anyway, you're locked in and your eyes are forward. It's called military bearing. And I remember getting off the bus the first night. It was probably like 3 a.m. though. We get off the bus and there's 50 of us. We're carrying our luggage. They said, put your luggage beside you, stand at attention and look forward and straight forward. And no matter what you do not look around. First thing they tell us. So we're standing at attention. And then every single instructor, I think on the base, showed up. And they swarmed like hornets on us. And it was chaos. Yelling and screaming. And they were doing everything they could to get us to look at them. And I thought, I thought they were doing it just because they're rude, But they're actually teaching you something. And here's what hit me as I'm studying this week. What they're teaching you is this. If you will keep your eyes forward, what happens is you lock into your mind's eye, because you do realize in thinking you see things, right? So you're locked forward in such a way that now in your mind's eye, you're listening for one thing, and you're listening for the voice of your commander to give you commands for what to do next. And what the first thing they do is they train you to keep your eyes forward, and then they start to train you on listening to the commands of the commander. So much so that they'll bring in another person and they'll start yelling out orders, and if you obey those orders, you're in trouble. So here's why that's important. Because when you're in the middle of a war, there's only one voice to listen to. When all the bombs are going off and all the chaos hits, there's one voice that understands strategies and understands where everybody's at and what everybody's doing, and they're yelling the commands, and you listen to only one voice. His name is Jesus. His name is Jesus. And we get so distracted by all the noise and the chaos, and we allow other voices to speak into us. And he says, keep your military bearing, eyes forward. That'll preach. And then I started thinking about the sheep and the shepherd. Because in John chapter 10, it says this. It says that my sheep will know my voice. And then I started to think about how we're called to follow him. But then, I don't know if you're like this, but when you think of yourself, do you think of yourself like a sheep often? No, I don't either. But when I did, because, we want to be stronger than that, but come on, let's just face it, we really are sheep. And as I'm grazing, I have a tendency to want to look around and see if the wolves are coming. Do you? You're always looking over your shoulder. I don't know about you, but I don't want to get bit in the backside, right? So I'm looking around, making sure that no one's going to stab me in the back or nothing's going to, and I'm constantly looking around. But in doing that, I don't have my eyes on the one that's saying, follow me. And what I came to realize this week is if I'll fix my eyes on the shepherd, he's watching for the wolves. He's like, you know what? You're a sheep. You can't fight them anyway. Have you noticed? You just don't have any fighting ability. There's nothing there. And he goes, I'm the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Let me handle your enemies. Let me handle them. You just look at me and know that I've got you. Graze, feed in my presence. Because here's what happens. I see the wolf. You know what I do? I run. And then when I run, I've pulled away from the protection of the shepherd. He says, stay right here. See, that's what happens when we decide that we're going to handle the situation, when we're going to manipulate things, when we're going to make it happen. He says, would you just stop and let me fight on your behalf? Listen to the voice of the commander and fall under his protection as the shepherd. And then I shifted into that thought, because, we're from Muletown, USA, and I'm used to seeing two mules yoked together, pulling in the Mule Day parade. Well, and thinking about that, I realized it's so important that we are evenly yoked with other people who are looking forward. Because here's what happens. Is I'll get distracted like I did this week, and my wife will be like, hang on a second, we're pulling together, but you're not pulling me there. And she'll look at me and say, we're going this way, big boy. I get distracted for a moment, and the next thing you know, she's pulling me forward, and my eyes come back. That's why we have to be yoked with other believers. Because there's going to be days when you're glancing all over the place, but that other person is going to go, hey, look forward. Stop looking at that. I can't tell you how many times people have called me and I've had the blessing and the honor of praying them back to looking in the right direction. I can't tell you how many times I've called Pastor Jerry or some of the others that are speaking to my life, and I'll be like, Pastor Jerry, I'm struggling with it. And he's like, come on, let's just look forward together. We need each other for those times. Kevin, we've done that how many times? All right, listening to the voice of the commander, letting our shepherd handle, because he's the provider. He's got this, right? But at the same time, evenly yoked with other believers who will pull us in the right direction when we decide that we want to wander off a little bit. Like, nah, we're not doing that today. Keep your eyes forward. Any of y'all ever struggle with this? See, what we talk about when it comes to the whole thing of keeping your eyes forward, we almost always go to the topic of purity. But it's more than that. It's so much more than that. What is happening when I have fear in my life? I should ask the question, what have I been looking at? When I have this fear inside of me, I'm like, what have I been staring at that's caused me to take my eyes off the... See, perfect love casts out all fear. And if I'm looking into the eyes of love, y'all, I want y'all to see this visual. The eyes of Jesus are on fire and blazing. Woo! See, that's that Revelation view. Y'all aren't having as much fun as me, but I'm telling you, when I I think of that visual of looking into the fiery eyes of Jesus. You know what happens? The things of this world become strangely dim in the light of His glory and grace. Turn your eyes on Jesus and look full in His wonderful face. You know, I feel like we could do this week. Last week is behind us. We have today to give. You know what happens today? We start looking in the right direction. That's what happens today. Well, but yesterday, Pastor, hey, yesterday's behind. It is what it is. Today is what we have. And today, we're going to fix our eyes on Jesus. And we're going to look into those burning, blazing eyes. And I'm telling you, they burn with a love for you like you don't even understand. He's like, just look right here. I got you enemies. Woo! He's going to bring the real guns. You know what I'm saying? Like, He's got this. Let Him handle that situation. Anxiety and worry. What am I looking at? Confusion. What am I looking at? If you look at Daniel, I'm sorry I'm stuttering now, but if you look at Daniel, I'm just so excited I don't even know what to say. Listen, if you look at Daniel in his life, he was thrown into the lion's den because every single day he would get on his knees and he would face Jerusalem and he would pray. It was said about Daniel, he had risen to like one of the top 3 in the country, right? One of the lead advisors to the king. And the other advisors, they started to get jealous, not like that happens in humanity, but started to get jealous because the king liked Daniel. So they go, all right, we got to corner him, we got to take Daniel out. But they realized the only way we can take him out is if it has something to do with his God. We're not going to catch him doing anything else wrong. We've got to corner him when it comes to his God. Man, I hope that could be said about me. And so, convince the king to make a law that everybody for 30 days can only bow to you. And they knew good and well what was going to happen. 3 times a day, and I love how it says it, Daniel did what he'd always done before. Open the windows, let the light in. And he would face Jerusalem and pray to his God. So they threw him in the lion's den. But God said, I'm not done with Daniel yet. And I know some people go, well, the lions, they must have fed them before they threw Daniel in there. That's why, you know. No, an angel shut their mouths, and I can prove that because when the people who had wrongly accused Daniel were thrown into the pit, they didn't even make it to the ground before the lions had dinner. But Daniel had his face set. Had his face set and towards wisdom in the right direction. I think about Nehemiah. He's building on the wall, and the enemies start talking smack about him. It may not say that in the Bible, but it was basically smack, right? He's talking smack talk about them and trying to get them to come down off the wall to quit building. And he said, hey, just send them a message. I'm doing too great of a work here on this wall in Jerusalem to come down and talk to you. I'm going to finish my work. He had his face set on that mission, on what God had told him to do. But then you see Jesus, and this is what blows my mind. It's in Luke chapter 9, verse 51. It says, when the days drew near for Jesus, for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. He set his face to accomplish the mission that his Father had sent him to accomplish. Do y'all realize that he had walked, he passed up people who were sick to go to Jerusalem. He passed up some good opportunities, right? But ultimately, his task was to keep his face set towards Jerusalem. Jerusalem literally means city of peace. Babylon means confusion. How many times do we live in the land of confusion or the state of confusion when we should be in the place of peace? So it kind of brings me to this thought. Any of y'all ever get on social media? Any of you? One or two of you? Not everybody does. I sometimes when I talk about social media, people come up afterwards like, I don't get on social media. I'm like, okay, I'll come up with something else. Newspapers? Lord, I don't know, But I asked this question. Do you ever get on social media and you felt pretty good when you got on, but when you got off of social media, you felt worse than when you started? Anybody? Something's wrong with that. Woo! Warning. Woo, 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 woo. I mean, if I get on there and I'm like, all right, I just came out of my quiet time with Jesus, I'm doing good, I get on social media, and then I end up in a downward spiral, and by the time I get done, I'm in the land of confusion. Come on. Something's not okay with that. Somewhere along the way, I took my eyes off the Prince of Peace, and I put them onto the Prince of Confusion. And as believers in Jesus, we're called to live in this place of peace. And I'm not talking about this euphoria, made up, unrealistic thing. What I'm talking about is, yes, in this world, you're going to have troubles, but take heart because He's already overcome the world. And what that means is this, that peace isn't everything being honky-dory in your life. Peace is what you have inside of you when everything's breaking free and going crazy. Because we have the Spirit of God in us and the Prince of Peace sitting on the throne of our life, we should fix our eyes on Him and stop going down that road. Like, how did I get there? And the question is, what was I looking at? What was I looking at? And I'm telling you, I'm not pointing the finger. I'm saying we've got to get this right. We've got to get this right. There's a world right now that needs some peace. Man, I wish like everything, they just look at my life and say, there's something different about. See, it's don't be anxious about anything, but through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, offer your requests to God. Y'all know that part. That the peace that passes all understanding, it's like the all understanding peace that's beyond. It's the kind of peace that you just don't get. I want people to look at my life and go, I don't get it. Like everything's going crazy in your life, but you have a peace about you. What's up? And I'll tell you, Jesus. The answer is it's Jesus. I just keep my eyes fixed on Him. And we don't go down that road. Because if the enemy can grab my gaze, he can grab my heart. And if he can grab my heart, then I end up in conversations I shouldn't be in. I end up looking at things I shouldn't look at. I end up going down a road I shouldn't. So this was one of those convicting things this week. Can I share it with you so you'll be convicted too? Like, will you share that? We've shared a lot of things. Can you share the conviction with me on this one? The question was posed. The Lord posed this question to me is, we're watching TV or whatever, and it's like, all right, when you go to watch TV, would you invite Jesus to grab some popcorn and sit down and watch what you're watching? I was like, okay. It's something to think about, right? But then you go, hang on a second, but the stuff, how many of you got smartphones? Some of y'all don't even want to admit it. You all got smartphones, right? Okay, I'll ask, we'll flip it. Anybody got a dumb phone? You're like, I don't even know what that is. Beam me up, Scotty. That's what those are. You know, the yeah, those. Y'all, I want you to know that that's the land of confusion in my life. And it's time for us to go, enough is enough. And start cutting some things out. And have some peace in our lives that we can share with others, right? Y'all want that? I think this is part of the revival process, is just assessing, what do I think about? What do I look at? What entertains me? And go, okay, is this really what God would have me do? And I know some of you are going to go home and be like, Pastor Eric said I can't watch football anymore. Listen, it's only if you're a Bama fan. That's it. That's it. Just any other fan, just keep doing your football. You know what I'm saying? It's like just the Bama fans. Because y'all can be mean. No. My brother's a Bama fan. That's why I said that. We need to assess our days and assess our time that we spend and just ask, do I spend my time focused on kingdom things? Or am I like a fool looking to the ends of this earth? Because I want to promise you this, that this world has nothing to offer in the grand scheme of things. What good is it if you gain the whole world but you forfeit your soul? And I want to remind you of this question. What good is it if you gain the whole world and you forfeit someone else's soul? See, we have a testimony that we're living out. We're called to live this thing out. And when it comes to our, not just our sight, but our mind's eye, we've got to pose this question. I've said this multiple times, but I think it bears repeating today, and that's this. Am I captured by my thoughts, or captivated by my thoughts, or do I take my thoughts captive to Jesus? Which one is it? Because capturing will take place. Do my thoughts captivate me? Am I captured by them? Or do I capture my thoughts? And the difference is, you pose the question, am I a jailer or am I a prisoner? Somebody came up to me after the last service, Don Steinfeld, and said, there's actually a third one. And you know what? After he said it, I said, no, I don't preach. He said, the third one is the trustee. Because, see, a trustee gets to spend a little bit of time outside the jail doing work and stuff, but has to come back. And I just wonder how many believers are in and out of jail. And their thought life, we're just in and out of jail. And he goes, well, hang on a second. I set you free. I set